Hello, today I will be going over the Dark Fortress Raid event and what you do, what you get, and how to win and successfully multiply your rewards by a lot. So first, what is this event? Essentially, your alliance leaders and officers will prepare, they'll choose a time and a type of troop to fight. They get different, damages received, bonuses, and this will come into play later massively, right? So you'll see, right? I can select the time, I will choose this just for the purpose of this video. And let's say cavalry. And so you can't place it where barbarians are. You can't place it off territory. It must be on your territory. And then once it's summoned, it stays there. So boom, here it's summoned. There's a 10-minute timer till that time I set. So let's talk about the event and get right into it. So essentially, you kill these barbarians, normal barbarians on the map, you get coins. Every member does this. You donate it, and by donating it, you get a percentage multiplier on damage. And once this is ramped up is when you're going to want to do it. So you're essentially going to want to time it for near the end. However, as I'll point out, you cannot start a raid within the last 60 minutes of the event. So you do not, absolutely do not, want to try and schedule it or wait to the end. Additionally, you'll note that if you don't donate some of your raid coins, it gets converted to personal points at the end. So what is this whole event? After you donate and you multiply your damage and you summon it like I did here, you basically can rally it with up to 8 rallies at a time. You do 8 rallies, as you can see here, they explain it clearly. You do 8 rallies, essentially trying to do the most damage possible. And once you do that, you get rewards. So you set up 8 rallies of a certain type. As you can see here, I chose cavalry, which takes more damage from infantry. You're going to want to choose whatever's best for your kingdom. So let's say you have a ton of infantry players, or archers really ideally, because archers will do more damage than infantry. You're going to choose the one that's going to make them take the most damage from archers for your kingdom. So let's talk about why we're doing this, the rewards. So individual rewards, if you do individual damage over this, you can get some stuff here. It's really nothing too meaningful, some resources, some keys, nothing important. But then we talk about this, and this is where things get interesting. These numbers seem incredibly low, right? And this may sound not interesting at all. But what's interesting is the multiplier. So the MVP, the person who does the absolute most damage, multiplies it. So let's say I did 361,000 damage and everyone else did less than me in my alliance. I'm doing a ×2 multiplier. So that's essentially, if we max it out to here, it would be, let's say 40 gems ×2, so 80 gems. That's nothing. But this goes up to ×10. And I'm sure the bigger kingdoms, especially SOC kingdoms, but the bigger kingdoms with 8 rallies of high-tech players hitting, right? High gear, fill rallies, keep them full. That's going to be a big part of winning this event. You get ×10. So this becomes a lot more meaningful, right? And it's nothing insane. None of these free events usually are, but we're talking about 40 ×10, right? And so it becomes a more meaningful thing. Same with speed ups, right? So you get, 30 minutes ×10. Books, you get, 30 books. You get more meaningful rewards on top of these. I will point out a massive benefit here in that you do get better things with better or harder damages here. These can be really beneficial. You get a 10 times multiplier on it. You get a 10 times multiplier, 50. That's really beneficial, right? In addition, if you get 5 of these, 10 of these, that's really helpful for SOC. It's also a lot of resources. So SOC does get some really good stuff. And you really may want to focus in and push the event properly, as I went over in this video, and continue to go over, because you really can, if you max it out and focus up and get everyone organized, as I've explained and will explain. 10 times 500 relics, these are expensive and hard to get, so it can be super beneficial for your king. And they did say they're going to keep tweaking this event, so I would definitely like to see a little more rewards in the future. But as it is now, this is what the event looks like. You're going to choose the fortress that's best for your kingdom. You're going to set up those rallies. As I showed earlier, it can only be on alliance territory. So you're going to want your city set up in a way that also you can place it. And then you're going to, get 8 rallies set up and have them full. You're going to want to make sure you're not launching 8 rallies without thinking about reinforcement. I think that's going to be a big difference in people who really max their rewards out and people who, just get a minimum or don't get maximum in terms of multipliers. Because at the end of the day, you're not looking to even just get this. You're looking to get, the max damage with ×10 individual multiplier. And that's only going to come from keeping rallies full, keeping it full of ideally tier 5 and SOC, but tier 4 or whatever you can manage before that. And this is how you're going to do it. I will point out, what are these tiers you see? It's the damage multiplier tiers. So part of getting a high score is definitely going to be maxing this tier out, which all that requires is people doing barbarians and donating. Additionally, part of this, right, is the alliance aspect. So we aren't talking about insane rewards. We are talking about 400 gems for each person in your alliance. SOC, we're talking, could be 100 if you're at a KVK, could be 150 people, right? It really multiplies. You get a lot more than, say, right now, I think my kingdom's at 90 people. So regardless, it does give you a lot for everyone, which strengthens your kingdom, rather than, an event like Silk Road, where say, 20 people show up, 20 people get some good stuff, everyone else gets really crappy minimum rewards. With that said, though, it is worth noting that you do have to participate. You don't get, bystander rewards, essentially. And with that said, you can also only participate in this event once. So if you're in an alliance, and let's say they do it at 20 UTC and you couldn't make it, but there's an alliance at 4 UTC doing it, you can join them and do it with them. But as far as this event's concerned, what do I think about it? Again, still waiting for it to begin. I think that it has a really cool concept in that everyone has to help out. You will not win and get max rewards if just 8 people start rallies. You need people to reinforce. You want an MVP, in other words, likely your best rally leader, getting points, or in theory, an individual that joins 5 rallies or 7 in KVK potentially. They're going to get the most rewards most likely for everyone, which is important. I do think perhaps the 400 gems, that is the max reward, can be tuned up. Same with this sort of stuff, right? It is high value. One of these is 10 gems, one of these is 10 gems. So if you max this in, a pre-KVK 1 kingdom, you get 300 gems worth here, 300 gems worth here, and then 400 gems worth here, in addition to potentially getting 10 gold keys, etc. That's pretty good, but I also really don't think that a pre-KVK 1 kingdom is going to be maxing this out. And lastly, I'll just remind you that you get one chance at this, so really start it when you're ready. You've got everyone online, you've got every city in position, and obviously, like I said, it's scheduled, so you don't start it right away, but it is very difficult to do. So you can see the event has begun, and I could join rallies here if there's someone going on. I could launch one myself. You also could see my individual damage dealt here, the multiplier, as well as the bonus it gets, and the alliance damage itself. You get 15 minutes, so you can launch a couple rallies. I am curious if in KVK that means you get a shorter rally time, but you can see it here. You get a lot of damage off with 8 rallies. You can really get a good multiplier going here. I also would be very curious, because it's typed as cavalry, can you do the talent that gives bonus damage to cavalry? Probably. I would assume you could. And with that said, I hope you like this guide. Subscribe. I will be coming out with more guides in the near future, and I will see you in the next one.